It's another beautiful Sunday afternoon. This is Rubbin Minds. Welcome. My name is Ebuka Buchende. Thanks a lot for joining us. I don't know if I should be using the word beautiful, actually, because we're getting reports, unconfirmed for now, about an attack in a Catholic church in Owo in Ondo State. Still trying to get all the details from there, but I think it just puts in perspective the situation Nigeria is in at the moment, where it looks like terror and just violence has taken over the entire landscape, and always seems to be talking politics. Unfortunately, at the same time, politics is also very big in the news at the moment. And we do hope that especially those in government still realize that they still have a job to do while the politicking can happen alongside all of that. So we'll be watching that space and hopefully getting more confirmed reports on all of that. But yeah, we're going to be talking politics today because the APC's presidential primaries will be holding in a day or two. I think tomorrow is the day, actually. And a lot has been going on in the last week, especially with certain candidates. And we're going to be starting our conversation today talking about Godfatherism and Nigerian politics. I have here with me Cynthia Mbamalo, who's the programs director for Yaga Africa. Thanks for being here today.
Hi, thank you.
So that's a very interesting point to start on, because the last couple of days, I believe it was 2 days ago, when a video surfaced of presidential candidates, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, making certain comments, which a lot of people found quite fascinating. That's a safe word to use.
Yes, yeah.
And we're hearing reports about, the chairman of the APC also saying something along the lines of some people might be sanctioned as a result of certain comments. What did you think first when you saw that? Because it talked about Mr. President, talked about Mr. Vice President, talked about the governor of Ogun State who was there, basically making assertions to the fact that he was the reason why a lot of these people were in office. And, as much as it's something people have always kind of thought about, it was interesting hearing it from him, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think what just happened was basically him affirming or confirming a lot of assumptions, and where a lot of people do believe that there are certain godfathers in the space who are kingmakers, sort of, and they control the politics and the narratives. And but I think people did not think such a video would surface, in the sense that people now feel comfortable to openly make this statement, especially in a system where there's a lot around building agency amongst the people. So what's that kind of video, the impact, which most times politicians don't even think about the impact of their statement. What it does is it raises two big questions. The first, it raises a major question in the minds of the voters who believed at some point that our votes got this person in, and they felt that that individual that got into power had some responsibility to them. But it raises that big question around, did we really get this person in? Perhaps that is why this person doesn't feel accountable to us. Yeah. So that's the first. The second, the big question around the process, because now a lot of people begin to doubt the political process itself and actually question the whole concept of democracy. Yeah. Is it really the people that chose the leaders, or is it just one individual or two individuals behind the scenes who did that? And like I said, it's not that people do not think they are godfathers, but what it just did was, I think one is the sheer arrogance in the conversation, and just going out and making such statements regardless of the fact that we're trying to build a system, and that as individuals you have a responsibility to actually show some level of discipline, regardless of how much money you invest, right? Every democracy in every country has individuals who are the big spenders. If you think about the American elections, they are big spenders, right?
Yeah, and I think that's, sorry to question, because that's what I think got a lot of people talking, because every system has some people who bankroll certain things. Yeah. We have the lobbying system in America, which is quite intense, where certain corporations almost always back certain candidates. But it was sort of, going back to what you mentioned about, even if you can trust the process, or even if you feel like, okay, we voted this person in, it's also a question of who then is this person loyal to? Yeah. Because this person says, oh, I put you there. Without me, you wouldn't have been there. Or when the voters rejected you, I came. Yeah. You were crying on TV. We're hearing certain things. Yeah. Where does the loyalty lie? And like you said, what does it do to voters at this point with regards to confidence, to even bother at a time when apathy is such a problem?
Yeah, and I think for such an individual who makes that kind of statement, I actually believe there's a need to come back again to the public and explain and provide context. And that is because we're in a system where, first, you mentioned the apathy. We're talking around how do we increase turnout. Last elections, turnout was at 35% for presidential elections. Youth turnout was at 28% for presidential elections. That's really poor. And we're doing a lot of people are on social media mobilizing offline to get people to vote. And the major question you hear from voters is our votes do not count. And there's a lot around building confidence that your vote actually counts. Just come out to vote. And now you have this statement out in the public. It raises that major question around, okay, so where does loyalty lie? Is it to the people or to one individual who has the money to bankroll the system?
Yeah.
And it shifts the burden of one responsibility, but also it dislodges the position of power in the system. Why? Our constitution says sovereignty belongs to the people. It's affirmed in the constitution. So ordinarily, there's a sense that we have the power as a people and that we determine who leads us. But what you do with these kinds of statements, or what some politicians have tried to do, is to shift that, where the position of sovereignty lies to an individual or a class of people rather than the people. And that is where we have a major question. I remember one time we were having a conversation some years ago, and one of the lawmakers said, "Oh, you did not get me into office, so don't ask us for accountability." And the constituents that were brought at the town hall were shocked, like, "No, we voted for you." And then the question was, "You think it's your vote that got me into power? It was not your vote. I had to get people who sponsored me, and I need to account to them." And immediately, the dynamics changed. Because as lawmakers, for instance, you should report and represent the people. But if the people who have come to meet you are making demands and you say, "Oh, it's not your vote that got me in. Someone got me in and I need to give accounts and give my kickbacks to that person," it just undermines the whole concept of democracy. And I think towards the next elections, we need to really redefine how we engage and participate. And I don't care how many people bring monies to support individuals, but as voters, we also need to understand that regardless of whose millions or billions bankroll systems, that we also have a role to come out to vote. At the end of the day, the votes are what should be counting, and we should still hold our leaders accountable. And individuals who use monies and think they can rob the system of that sense of accountability to the people should actually begin to be held accountable.
Away from even that particular incident, I think what we saw through the primary season, which also got people talking, was the fact that a lot of children of politicians or office holders, both past and present, won tickets from Delta states to parts of the North. Mm-hmm. I think I saw a list that had about 12 or 15 names, including the former child of former head of state, Sani Abacha. Mm-hmm. So it looks like we're starting to build what you would call political sort of legacies in our system. But people would argue it's not a bad thing. We've had the Clintons and the Bushes in America. Mm-hmm. The Kennedys went on for decades, mm-hmm. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. Do you think it is a bad thing here?
I do not think it is a bad thing necessarily. I just think it's about the perception, right? Because we still have a major trust issue within our system. And there's also the worry that you have individuals who want their children to take over from them, and it's not a monarchy, it's a democracy. So I think for us, the focus should be around the process through which they emerged. Was it a credible, transparent process? Was there fair competition that anyone, regardless of their social status, would have been able to emerge? I think that should be the basic question. And some of them are young people. Can young people also start having engagements with them to understand, to see if they will have a youth agenda for young people? I think that is important. However, we cannot run away from individuals trying to replicate themselves in politics. You see it in different countries. Right. So that would always be there, but I think it's about the process.
Okay. So I want to kind of still link to this, but to kind of shift the conversation away from, the godfathers themselves or the political party office holders whose children are becoming, getting into the system per se. I think what I think is the overriding theme here for me is money, which is why when people talk about, the Not Too Young to Run bill, which became law, and, what it has done to getting young people into the space. I think the overwhelming conversation after that has always been about, can people even afford this system? Which is why godfathers would always exist, because we can't pay our way through what is a very, very expensive political cycle and system, the way things exist now. But we're joined now by Okada, who's a project lead for Nigeria Youth Futures Fund. And I think I want to throw that question to you about money. With the way the Nigerian political system exists now, we have a new electoral act which is supposed to have, but it looks like it even took the benchmark higher for these things. Can we stop talking about Godfatherism in politics if politics is as expensive as it is now?
Right. Interesting conversation you were having with Cynthia before now. And John, to answer your question, I think it'll be, quite difficult, to say that. Because I think for lack of a better word, Godfatherism could also be an euphemism for mentorship, right? Godfatherism now has assumed the certain status of the negative side of what mentorship is supposed to be. And in the ideal sense, like in business or any other sphere, it's impossible to, ascend the ladder without some kind of support or some people's shoulders to ride on. So I would say it's literally impossible. Yeah. Just as you have it in business, you would always have people who have come before you and who you're trying to go in their steps. Now, the negative connotation that now, pointing to is the kind of the kind of relationship that, this kind of mentorship is producing. If you look at the Sarakila one back in the 90s, or the Nwombodo and the Namani, or even down to what we have going on in Lagos. It's been fraught with relationship around, not really about the people, but around control, I know there was a huge issue around security votes with Ladoja and Adedibu back then, that, you're supposed to be bringing your security vote back to my house. Yes. And, that was like what blew up the relationship. So relationships like that, and I think we need to be frank around the reality of Nigerian politics and how it works and the power that money plays, and how, because of how, deprived our society is, how some people at the end of the day, I've been involved in a lot of elections, and I've seen where people are telling me that, the 5,000 naira that they got during the election time, that was the first time that they held 5,000 naira together in the whole year. So imagine somebody who is having 5,000 naira for the first time in a whole year and telling me that I didn't see you in the last 4 years anyway. So if I get this 5,000 and walk away, what difference does it make? So I think we must accept the fact that for democracy to work, there is a certain minimum of economic threshold. People have to be informed to make informed decisions. You have to be economically empowered to a certain extent, where 5,000 will not matter. So I think Godfatherism, for as long as money will play an important role, there will always be money bags.
I guess, how do we get out of this? Because you said we have to face the reality, which I agree with. Because throughout politics, from at least for as long as I can remember, probably the Second Republic was when I think I got cognizance, like you said, the Mwobodos and the Mwodos and all of that. It's been happening even in the Southwest. Do we get to a point now where we find a way of making this a part of the culture and regularizing it in some way? Do we need proper campaign finance reforms where we put a cap? And if we put a cap, how do you monitor that cap? Are these things even possible?
Right. So my answer to that is that I believe it's a long game. And the reality of it is that to get the result that we want, it's going to take some time. And speaking to what I said earlier, there has to be we have to demand some certain minimum economic standard for our people. For as long as poverty reigns supreme, just like in every other country where poverty is at this kind of threshold, you witness this kind of situation where it's not about the issues, it's at the end of the day about, this kind of conversations for starters. At what level, if we start to scale it down, can we even have this kind of conversation at the local level, the people who have these PVCs? So that's already tells. So I would say it's a long game. As we are having these transitions, those of us who are within this space must begin to demand that, you're coming in, we have to move our people out of poverty. We have to get our people informed. It is until we get that would have some kind of significant effect on the people. Okay. And on campaign finance, there are pegs. They're actually pegs. They've been recent reviews, but it's never been effective. Yeah. The peg that they put on presidential election is what some people are using to run for House of Reps or using to run for House of Assembly. So it's not realistic. It can't be policed. The people making the laws are the ones breaking them. So it's literally, I don't see that working. But what I would say as a solution is, we must continue to stand together and demand beyond the transition of an election that has done. Are we able to significantly increase? There will be a direct correlation by the number of people who moved out of poverty, who are more educated, resulting in lesser vote buying. Okay. So that's what I think is going to be a pragmatic one.
Cynthia, is crowdfunding a realistic option here? I know there are a couple of people who have run for office, especially in this cycle now, who have tried it out. I remember at least Banky W, for example, keeps putting out, support. I saw a lot of people on Twitter as well who were running for several seats doing that. But considering, like you were saying, people are running for House of Reps seats with presidential budgets, is this a realistic, and is Nigeria even the kind of place where people actually believe in stuff like that? We saw Obama. Obama continues to be the example globally to say you can actually do this successfully with people. But the American middle class is very, very wide, and people can afford to do things like that. Is that possible here long term?
Well, I think it's possible, and I believe it's possible, actually. And you took that from my mind, because when he was talking, I was just thinking around the opportunities of crowdfunding. And that is because what we've seen consistently is the Nigerian society, we cannot wait till everyone gets to a certain minimum standard of economic, or minimum level of economic, how would I put it now, sufficiency, or to say, oh, we can now. Because the thing is, we can't wait that long. But what we need to start getting people to understand is, let's stop making excuses, using poverty as an excuse to sell our votes. Someone gave an example. When someone steals your phone and is running, a lot of us say, ole, you run and you chase the person. Nobody will say, oh, now hunger make them steal, make we no beat them. They will still gather and beat the person, but he's probably hungry. Even those who steal a loaf of bread are beaten for that. So why is it that when it comes to selling of votes, we accept the excuse of poverty, but when it comes to criminality, we don't accept the excuse of poverty? So we need to also begin to reject the way we think. And I believe that crowdfunding is working, especially for smaller or I don't want to say smaller offices, but legislative offices, state assemblies, House of Reps. I have individuals who are already doing that. But we need to start helping people understand the importance of supporting campaigns. It's not in our nature, because we started with a more transactional relationship with power. And it always meant if someone comes to campaign, is what do you have for us before we engage?
Okay.
But now it's hard to shift that thinking around. You need to support that. And that is where the middle class comes in. Elite youth, where there are many of us that can support with 1,000 naira. But we don't want to give 1,000 naira.
So this election cycle is different, because this is probably the longest window we've had between primaries and the main election. I think we have about 8 months or so between now and February next year. Is this a good thing? Because there's more money to be spent now. In the past, you had 2 months to do this, where you could, just quickly gather funds and, dole out or whatever it is. And, with 8 months, isn't it harder now even for young people to be able to get into the space and compete favorably? Because most people, how much crowdfunding can you do to sustain you for this long haul?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think, the longer the time, the more money you have to spend, the more money you have to engage and all that. And that's the reality of it. I think it's gotten worse. This cycle and this expanse of time, this number of time you have between campaign period definitely increases your budget. You know, people already expect you. Of course, you've been spending even in the course of the primaries. And to be frank, I think it's the kind of money we're talking about to run elections. I've had the opportunity of being on this side, of actually seeing what goes on, and also be on that side. And the reality of it is exorbitant. It is unrealistic. In fact, it almost looks like, what's the IJR of that state? Like, what's the entire money you get on a monthly basis compared to the kind of money you put into the elections? So there needs to be a serious, frank conversation. And just to speak around how young people who have political legacies are the ones getting into it, it boils down to platform. They're the ones who have access to these things. And it's just easy for them to transition into that in terms of that. So it's, it's not rocket science.
We can see more of that, definitely.
Yes, it's not going to go away anytime soon. And it's going to make it more difficult. Okay, as a young person, I'm an advocate of you have to be a professional. We don't want professional politicians, right? We want professionals in politics. So we expect that you build some kind of career, before you have a second address, so to speak. So, what amount of time will you spend trying to build some kind of social capital and have a second address before you now transition with the mindset that you don't have a godfather or you don't have, anybody's shoulders in that sense, quote unquote, to drop maybe 200 billion naira for you. So, we need to be very pragmatic about these things.
Quick yes or no before we go from both of you. Optimistic about the elections this year?
Yes, I'm optimistic.
Yeah, being an eternal optimist. Yeah.
You have to take a deep breath. Thanks a lot for that. I'm sure we'll be seeing a lot more of you through this season, because things are just about to heat up. And thanks for being here today. We'll take a quick break now and be right back. Please stay with us. All right, welcome back. I have a special guest here in the studio with me, an absolute idol of many of us growing up over the years, and he's here to take us a bit on a journey, hopefully, of how he got to where he is today. If you're anything near being a fan of Nollywood, even if you're not a fan, you definitely know him and his name, Umez is here with us. Thank you very much, sir, for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
I read somewhere that you've been in this industry for 30 years. About that.
About that, yes.
That is unreal. What got you into it in the first place?
Truthfully, money. Yes, you know, I studied English, first degree, and I have my master's in international law and diplomacy.
Okay.
So when I graduated, did my master's. When I graduated, I wanted to, of course, the only employable ministry would be the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. But I think there was an embargo on employment then.
At the time.
You know, so I had to fall back to my first discipline. And one of the course content was Introduction to Drama. And I'd done something like that, you know, we'd done some stage performances. So it wasn't a difficult thing for me to decide on.
Yeah.
You know, and of course, we have this model in Hollywood where you'll hear that somebody earned 20 million doing a movie and this and that.
So
I was
you
like,
saw,
oh, right, it was wonderful
there
for
was
me.
potential there.
Serious potential.
But it's still, you're still talking at a time when there was literally no industry here. Yes, people were making films here and there.
Yeah.
But there was nothing you could really call a proper industry. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're right.
And you have a master's degree. I'm also wondering how you tell people around you, then family, that, oh, I have 2 degrees, but I want to go act. At a time when acting was seen as such an unserious profession.
It wasn't serious because we didn't have a structure.
Yeah.
Just like you said. But, you know, nobody told me not to do anything.
Yeah.
I had a mind of my own, and nobody told me anything. I just wanted to do it. I felt I could do it, you know. And like I told you earlier, the model I had at the back of my head, mind was the Hollywood model. You know, go in. I didn't even think about the structure then. I was coming in as a new person. I didn't even think about any structure. I didn't know there was a structure. I'd seen movies.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to be part of the movie thing, and you know, just like that. So for me, I wasn't thinking about any structure.
And you went in and thrived really, really well. And it's interesting now to hear you say you have a degree in English, because a lot of us watching at the time could tell there was something different about you with your performance.
I'm blushing.
No, but it's true.
I'm blushing.
You know, your command of English, the way you expressed yourself.
Thank you.
So you got into the industry. What was it like at that time? And what kept you going? Because then you got in and probably found out you were not going to make $20 million, like you were saying in Hollywood. So what kept you there?
My first movie, I played the lead in my first movie.
Your very first movie?
My very first movie, Pains. I played Chief Ikanga. I was
How old were you then? Were you 30s,
20s? Let's let that slide. You know.
All right, we'll let it slide.
You know, let's let it slide. Okay, I played the role of Chief Ikanga.
Okay.
Okay, and I was to be paid 23,000. But Ibuka, up till tomorrow, I've not been paid.
Oh. Really?
So my reason for venturing into the movie thing, I didn't get it.
Why were you not paid?
Reasons, you know, no money, this and that, and but I have not been paid up till tomorrow. Okay, so I did one other one. I don't think I was paid too. So I felt it wasn't an industry I would survive in. So I left for about 2 years. You know, I was doing private tutoring, you know, and I was making some money from that too. That kept me going, you know. And after about 2 years, I came back. I did the movie The Princess. I started alongside Zach Orji before I hit it big time with Died Wretched.
And they paid you that one at least?
Definitely, definitely, yeah. Definitely.
Are you surprised, or let me say, are you impressed or disappointed at where Nollywood is now? Because it could go both ways. Maybe you expected it to have evolved a lot more than it has. Or are you impressed with how far it has come?
I am impressed with how far it's gone. We can do better. But right now, the way it is, we have done really well. Seriously, we've done really well. And of course, technology has come into play. You know, so things are much better. You know, and like I always tell people, then it was gritty and blah, 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 you know. But now technology can make you a better actor.
Yeah.
Just be on set. Be lucky to be on that set. technology will make things better for you.
Yeah.
But then we had to grind and toil and whatever, One camera is here, do the master, do the medium. If you're 5 on set, you do one here, one there. It was grueling. It was hard work. It was hard work.
You said now technology can make you better. Do you think talent has dipped as a result? The quality of talent compared to when you were?
Yes, because then you had to know your onions. You had to. You really had to. I'm not saying they're not wonderful actors as we now. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
But I just feel that the toil isn't there anymore. The passion that drives you to be better isn't there anymore. It's showbiz. We now focus more on the business part of the show. So it's not as, I'm looking for that adjective to qualify this thing now.
Yeah.
But it's a little different. You just be on set. Be good enough to be on set. Then technology will do the rest for you. But then I don't know.
It was grittier back then.
Seriously, it was a task.
Yeah.
Hard work. You really needed to employ yourself,
Yeah. To get
but
things
now,
I want to go into, you've become sort of an internet sensation all over again from the fact that you were typecast so much back in the day, to certain roles. You've almost become an adjective for, the guy who women sort of deal with, quote unquote, and do you see these things? And when you were being typecast a lot at the time, as the emotional, vulnerable guy, back in the day, it may not have been normal. These days, it's okay to cry. It's okay to be vulnerable. At the time, why were you taking these roles? And what do you think about the fact that these days you are the guy who's, the poster person for that?
First things first. When you're given a script and they tell you this is the character you're playing, you go through the script. If you like it, you do it.
Yeah.
And of course, money is always attached to it.
So money was always important for you?
No, the script first.
Okay.
It has to be a good script, then money. Sometimes I tell people, I say, because after all said and done, to God be the glory. Some ends are contrived, So I tell them, if I'm playing Tony Umez, this isn't the way the thing will end. But of course, I'm not playing me. I'm playing a character. And if you search far and near, you will know that there is somebody that fits into that mold.
Yeah.
So I am playing somebody who will understand. You understand? Somebody in that mold that will understand that thing. And I'm trying to tell the viewers that whether you like it or not, there are people like this.
Yeah.
You understand? There are people like this. You can't take it away. But the script has to be good. The money has to be okay. and so I wasn't too bothered about being typecast.
Yeah.
I wasn't too bothered about that because even in Hollywood, you have typecast.
Yeah.
So once the money,
Very key.
But
you see all the memes these days.
You say?
Do you see all the memes and the jokes these days on social media?
I see them. I see them. I enjoy some. I don't enjoy some, but they don't affect me.
Yeah.
They don't affect me negatively. It's part of show business.
Yeah.
So you need at some point in time to develop a thick skin, and don't let things bother you much.
Yeah.
So,
you talked about taking a break when you started. It also felt like you have taken a break for a while as well in between at certain points in your career. Because when it looked like the other parts of Nollywood, which are called New Nollywood now, even though I think it's one industry.
It's one industry. It's a
or the
continuum.
cinema Nollywood, which they
that's
call
what they
it.
live all these
It
things.
looked like,
continuum.
how did that affect you? Have you consciously taken a break at any point to go do other things? Or have you always been active and we just maybe saw you were behind the scenes or we didn't know exactly?
No, I didn't take a break. I didn't take a break voluntarily.
Yes.
It just happened.
How so?
I don't really know, honestly. Maybe the influx of more people into the industry and maybe the scripts were like more focused on maybe much younger people.
Yes.
Or, I don't know. I can't give you a reason as to why that happened.
Yeah.
I don't. But I've always been working on myself, you know. Even those times I did some movies, but I wasn't as prolific as I used to be, you know. But then, you know, I can't give you a reason, basically, that this is, you know, that this is what it is, or this what happened. I don't know.
Were you possibly a victim of what we outside of the industry hear a lot about cliques and friendships and how casting works? You know, if you're not cool with a certain pool of people, you might start slowly getting, you know.
I don't want to cast aspersions on people's integrity, you know. Maybe, maybe not. I don't really have a reason. I can't profile a reason as to why that happened. Honestly, I cannot. I cannot. I don't want to step on people's toes without having proper information as to that. You know, I can deduce that certain things happened, but it's not something I can come out and say boldly, like, yes, I know for sure that this was what happened. You know.
When you look back at your career, what moments would you say, or what movies maybe, you look back at and say, yeah, that was the one, or those were the ones? Are there moments in your career that always make you smile? You know,
every moment has made me smile, because this is an industry I love so much. Right from Died Richard, you know, I've done some blockbusters.
That was a good movie.
It was a good movie. It was a movie that threw me up there, and to God be the glory, I've been there. You know, Died Richard, Blood Sisters. I've done quite a lot that when I think about them, I smile. And I have some recent ones too. You know, I was involved in Lockdown, and there's Magic Figures, after April. Then some I did this year. They're not yet out. You know, Force Empire with RMD, Sherry Marines, and others. You know, so every moment has made me smile. I love working. I love being on set. I love the challenges and stuff, you know, so it makes me happy. Outside my family, my job makes me happy.
And it's good to hear that, I mean, you're still very actively working. But you talked about structure at the beginning, and I want to ask you a question on that, because the industry is at a very interesting place now. We're seeing all of the streaming platforms coming in. The Netflixes, Amazon Primes, you know, Showmax, they all seem to be getting their hands in the pie. It looks like it's doing something good for the industry here. But on the other end, we keep hearing about all the drama sometimes from the guilds and the politics that happens there. And you meet a lot of new actors who you ask, are you a member of the guild? And you're like, no. And they actually tell you, I'm never going to join. You know, as against what we have in Hollywood, where being a member of the guild is almost a part of your career. You have to be a part of that. Why do you think here we still don't have that on lock, where, you know, regulation, or at least for actors and looking out for their welfare, is still a thing?
Well, just like you rightly said, ordinarily an actor should belong to a guild. Well, you see, there's this misconception that when you belong to a guild, the guild should source for jobs for you. No guild does that. You know, the guild protects your rights. When you're hurt by somebody, the guild comes in.
Steps in,
They step in. That's the thing. It's just that we need to have a memorandum of understanding with other guilds that if you're not a registered actor and you're not financially up to date, you shouldn't be able to work on so-and-so person's set. So that when anything happens, you can be held responsible for something, or you can hold another person responsible. Well, even though we have these guilds, it's still an all-comers thing. You know, so I don't know. We have a long way to go. The president of AGN now, Rollers, is doing a lot of work. He's really doing well, trying to bridge the gap and stuff. He's really doing well. He also has some insurance policies, you know, that you can benefit from. But you see, a lot of these actors also come to complain that AGN does not come to their rescue when they need us. But ordinarily, morally, they do that. But if you look at it legally and legitimately, if you're not a member of a guild, you don't expect the guild to come to your aid. It doesn't work like that. But sentimentally, yes, you're an actor. But you're not registered with me, so why should I come and help you? You're not financially up to date, so why should I help you? Why should I use other people's dues to source for whatever things you want? But, you know, then sometimes some of our members, when they need to travel outside the country, that's when they run to AGN for help. Okay, I need my ID card. But we will get there. It's still a work in progress. You know, everything is a process.
Yeah.
You know, it's still a work in progress. We'll get there. Some people are coming to see the benefit of being, maybe they feel agents should do more. And I think Emeka Rollers is looking into that too.
Yeah.
You know, to make it more viable for people to
Hopefully,
come
because
join.
it breaks a lot of our hearts when we see all of this posts sometimes about maybe some of our legends asking for money for maybe health conditions and things like that. And the question always comes, where's the AGN at this? You know, but I understand it's still a work in progress, and hopefully we can, you know, surpass all of that. But I want to ask you, your private life, interestingly, is very, very quiet. And I know it's a conscious effort. But for an industry where they say, you know, all of this helps, the showbiz or the personality or the person's, you know, brand to grow, the more you're seen or the more you give off, the more you are visible and the more work you get. How have you been able to do that where almost nothing is known about you besides, which is why people almost, you know, assume that the Tony Umez they watch on TV is Tony Umez. You know, that is how he probably is in real life. Because we know nothing about you outside that.
It's just like you said, it's a conscious thing. I want to have a public life as separate from my private life. I go there, do stuff as an actor. I come back, stay home as Tony Umez, you know, and I think so far, so good for me. I'm an intro extra. I like being alone, does not make me a lonely person. I love being with my family. They give me great joy. But I also derive great joy when I work. So I've been able to, you know, carry it well.
Yeah.
You know, I really don't know. I really don't know. But I just want the Tony Umez public, Tony Umez private to still be Tony Umez public and private. I still want that to remain.
Yeah.
So I can have my peace. I can enjoy. When I'm offset, let me enjoy myself. You know, let me be at
both
peace
very
with myself.
separate.
You know, I just told her, I said I'm an intro extra. I find joy being alone. But when I'm with friends too, I still find joy. I enjoy myself.
Yeah.
I don't consciously, I can sit with you or with a couple of friends, you know, in a quiet place, maybe take one or two bottles, stay from night till morning. But if you situate us in a club,
it's not really for you.
because I will need to shout to get your attention. And I am an R&B person, basically.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm
Fair
cool
enough.
like that. You know?
Fair enough. For the final note now, before we go, I mean, anything you're working on, we need to keep our ears open for.
Oh,
and watch out for?
yes. A couple, but the major one that we're really working on is a series, you know, Lagos Baby Boy. You know,
Interesting.
it's you need to. It's a beautiful.
That's out soon.
Very, very soon, very soon. We've done the audition.
Okay.
We did the second one yesterday.
Okay.
You know, on Saturday, yesterday on the 4th. You know, that was when we did the grilling session. You know, the first one was the screening. You know, we shortlisted some people. So it's going to be a bomb.
Looking forward to that.
It's going to be a bomb, believe me. And tentatively, we've done our casting for some major roles. We have Itinamba, the Itinamba.
The Tinam.
The Itinamba. You know, I'm also involved as an actor and a director.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, okay, yes. And my crew is solid as they come. Solid as, in fact, don't worry, we'll give you updates. It's going to be
looking
a
forward
bomb.
to that.
No,
the title already has my attention.
It's really going to be a bomb because I love doing wonderful scripts.
Yeah.
So, and that was why I said, you know, in those days, it's the show part of the business we knew. When you get a script and you're enamored with the script, you want to do everything to be part and parcel of that thing, you know. That's how the script gets me.
Okay.
Anytime I go through it, 13 episodes are going to shoot first. Anytime I go through it, and we have this young, wonderful writer, Destiny Obehi. Oh my goodness, that guy is some. Don't worry, you'll see. It's going to take the industry by storm. Believe me.
Can't wait. Lagos Baby Boy.
Lagos Baby Boy.
We'll be looking out for that one. Thank you very much, Tony Umez, for being here today. All the best with everything. I want to see more of you, man. So keep doing the good work.
I will do that.
Keep doing the good work. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll take a break now and be right back. Please stay with us. All right, welcome back. The ban on Okadas in Lagos went into effect, I think, on June the 1st I think 5 local governments of the states is where it's effective. And I've been joined by Siken Adirisu, Group Programs Director for the Beat FM, to talk about this and the effect it's going to have on the state. Thanks for being here today.
Oh, thank you so much, Ebuka.
What are your thoughts on that? Because it's been quite controversial.
Oh, very.
From the initial ban a couple of years ago with, ride-hailing services that were banned almost as quickly as they were commissioned.
Yeah, true.
And then this has come now, and there's a lot of conversations as to what effect it would have on things like crime, or even just, how people commute in the States. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, back in the day when the first one happened and it was an Okada and a Keke ban, I was all out on Twitter, calling out the government and saying it made no sense, because where I work on Kefi Street, people could not even properly commute from Obalinde all the way to the Total Filling Station, which was a very short distance for people to work, and all of that. Then, over time, slowly, because they restricted them into inner roads, if you remember, then slowly they started coming back to the major roads. So I think one of the main issues in Nigeria or in Lagos per se is, laws are put in place, then enforcing them now becomes a problem, because there are constant loopholes and, there are people that are circumventing, these laws and these procedures. Then, a few weeks ago, we heard about the very ugly incident that happened in Lekki, and which was perpetrated by people who ride these Okadas. And I came all out and said, something has to be done, because a group of people riding motorcycles cannot, take laws into their hands and start to lynch people. It makes no sense, and it happened in the heart of Lagos, an area which is said to be a very safe place. So the ban has gone into effect right now. We've started to see the ripple effect. A lot of people are trekking. The last mile buses are not even able to, meet up to the demand of the people who need to get from one place to the other. So I think the government now needs to now step back and say, okay, how do we solve this problem? One of the major problems, plaguing Lagos, aside the flooding, lack of accommodation, is, lack of a proper central transportation system. It's like, okay, the governor needs to figure out, how do we get private cars off the road? How can we be able to effectively have a public transport system that can be able to get people from one point, to the other? And for a city like Lagos, it's the train system, which has been in, the red and the blue line since 2009. This conversation has been going on. Yes, we have been seeing infrastructure being laid, but it seems like it's going at snail speeds. We've seen this new president come in, and we've seen, of new rail lines, Abuja, Kaduna. So why is it that Lagos is taking so long to actually just get that right now? So crime is going to spiral. We understand people are going to start trekking, the hardship is going to increase. And it will all bring us back to the table as regards, okay, how do we solve this issue as regards, transporting people? Speaking
of how do we get, because the ride-hailing conversation was very, very shocking to a lot of people, because the governor himself commissioned, a lot of these. A bunch of them, yeah. Is it time to have that conversation again? Where that's the middle ground. We can regulate the Okadas as against sending everybody away. Do you still think that was a wrong move? And do you think that's probably a way to sort of, pacify? Because trains are great, right? But trains are still going to take years. Yeah. And they're not going to go into every corner. You're still going to have to walk to the train stations. And
so how do you get there?
Yeah, so how do you get there?
When you get off the train, how do you get back home?
Exactly.
How do you get to your offices? Yeah. So ride-hailing services are a perfect way to be able to regulate, where you have a central database system that, not only holds information as regards the bikes, but biometrics for the people that are riding these bikes. And also, I believe that, bikes shouldn't be on major highways. Lekki Expressway, you're driving on Third Wayland Bridge, you're seeing these guys there. Yeah. So bikes should be, restricted to little tiny roads and inner roads as well. But when you have, when you outsource it to ride-hailing companies, where you understand that, okay, if there's an issue, you can go back and you can know that there's a central database that holds all this information. Then that's an ideal, that's a possibility that needs to happen. So why they were banned in the first place is another, policy decision that I still, sincerely do not understand.
Yeah, and a lot of people in the other local governments where it hasn't been banned yet
50.
are worried.
Yeah.
Because you've pushed people here.
Yeah.
So
what's going to happen?
Also, crime that might start happening in all of those places, Is a total ban even a part of the conversation? And we're seeing this happen in some other states. I think it was Kano, States, Kano States are having those conversations now, saying, okay, we're trying to... What then happens? Because nobody's talking about the alternative for these people who are actually legitimately working.
Oh, yeah, true. So I think, what we're seeing right now is a lack of a strong policy direction from the Lagos State government. We have a city of 20 million people. We need to be able to figure out how do we move these people. Then also we need to understand that, these are people who are trying as much as they can to come to Lagos to actually make, a source of income. So what we now need to do right now, like you rightly said, is to find a way to regulate them and also find a way to say, okay, these are the areas that you're applying. You go to cities like New York and you have something called the medallion taxes. So the medallion taxes are the taxes that go through the 5 boroughs of New York. So if you're not licensed to go to the 5 boroughs, you know that if you go there, you know what the consequences are. So we need to have policies in place, and we need to be able to follow them strictly to the latter. So because when the task force come and impounds these Okadas, what we now have is people, a pity party of some sort that, oh, you're taking away their source of livelihoods. But we need to understand that for us to be able to have a state that we are all proud of, where transportation is seemingly working, we need to be able to abide by rules that are laid down.
Are the kekes an option?
Oh yes.
More kekes?
I'd say
there are menace on the road.
Yeah, I know, because the road network in Lagos is atrocious at best. You have they're tiny for the amount of people that they are on. So what we now start to need, what the government needs to start to pivot towards is how do we get a lot of people into large means of transport that can be able to take people from one place to the other. Yeah, kekes, fantastic. Buses, yes. Trains also. Then, like when we saw ride-hailing services, we knew how it's relegated those yellow taxis that we had in Lagos because people had better alternatives. So when there are better alternatives as regards, okay, it's cheaper and it's more convenient and it's safer to be able to take public transport than take my personal car, then people will use it. Yeah. So what we need to see right now is like a proper master plan as regards how do we solve, the transportation system in Lagos. Then all the conversations around kekes and, Okadas will naturally just die out because if there's a bus or if there's a train service or if there's, Lagos is surrounded by water. You can literally get to every point in Lagos, using the lagoon or anything. Why are we not exploring it? Why are we not using it or anything? Yeah. So these are the conversations that we need to happen. So right now we are, in a very precarious situation. Hundreds, thousands of people thrown out of jobs. We know when a man gets hungry, he's pushed to the walls. Then we see crimes, spiral. So I'm hoping that the government also has a stopgap to make sure that, okay, these areas where bikes are no longer operating, what are we doing to make sure crimes do not step up? And the places where they are allowed to actually, operate, what are we doing also to make sure that crime doesn't, spike again? Because what we're having right now is that, the government is more reactionary than actually getting in front of the problem. So before, the young man was lynched in Lekki, what was the government doing as regards regulating, the activities of the Okadas in Lagos?
So, very true. Yeah. On a final note now before we go, I mean, when the governor of Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, ran for office, his agenda was called teams, I believe. Yeah. Literally the first word there is transportation, which was, okay, maybe this is the one thing you want to tackle. It's almost 3 years plus now since he's been in office. How do you rate his time? I mean, like you said, we've seen some work on the red line, I believe. A lot more work. It looks like something is happening there. But I know he also talks about the fact that, the water transportation is trying to explore that more. But generally, road networks, a lot of places are dark again, How do you think he's done with the first thing on his agenda?
Well, with transport, I drive in Lagos. It's tiring. There are no proper places to park. Parking has been outsourced to, private people, and I won't call them area boys. I'll just say people who are trying to make a living and everything. So I think that, we need stronger policies, and we need the governor to be, firm as regards the things that he wants to do. We've seen him do, the trains that are coming from Milwaukee. We've seen a lot of work going on the train lines, but we need the work to actually speed up. You understand? Because once there's a proper transport system, you connect communities more. People can be able to plan better. You understand? So I think he needs to, put his foot down more and actually have a strong policy direction and timelines as regards, okay, this is what I want to do. This is when I want.
Because Lagos is still growing.
Yes,
so you have to plan for the future.
Yeah, so this is what I want to do, and this is when I plan to achieve. So once I knock off this, this policy direction, I can move on to all these things. But what I think right now is the governor should be thinking as regards how do I get Lagosians to leave their cars at home and use the public, the public transportation system. In big cities like London or like Paris or like New York, you can't even afford to drive because it's cutthroat. When you talk about congestion charges, when you talk about parking fees or anything, it's easier to pay $2 or $1 to actually just use the subway system or the PATH train or generally just hop on the bus. Yeah, it'll take you longer, but at the end of the day, it's going to save you time than actually bringing your car into the city. A city like Lagos that is, spiraling with businesses and people and housing every day should be thinking in that direction as well. Yeah. How do we get people to keep their cars at home? How do we get more cars off the road? And how do we build, a public and a more effective and efficient transport system?
Well, I hope in all this politicking that's happening now, people are paying attention to what really matters because there's still a whole year to go.
Oh, yeah. 8 months,
governance
I think.
for the governor of Lagos. Thank you very much
no problem.
for being here today.
Yeah.
And thanks for joining us. Like I always say, you can follow the conversation on Twitter. Please use the hashtag Rubbin Minds when you send us a message. I'll see you next Sunday.